construction workers. Spectre has done the same thing. They've hired us to do traffic control, crowd control, security. These are off-duty police officers who are hired on an overtime basis. They pay us the top pay overtime rate plus fringe benefits.
Ken, I'm going to stop you. When you say pay us, do they actually pay the city?
They do. They reimburse the city.
So these aren't
oh my God.
These aren't police off duty being privately hired.
Yes, they are.
Well, no,
that's not what he said.
They're hiring the city to provide police services. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
See, the way it's looked at, based on most of these types of projects would require our services anyway. So we would be called down for if there was a crime at the respective property, if there were demonstrations, if there were trespassing issues, if there were issues with people coming into the safety zone, we would be called. So in order to be proactive, Spectre has hired the city of Peekskill, as they have with Westchester County and other municipalities throughout the region where they're doing this project. So we go down, we post an officer there for a set period of time, and they reimburse the city for the cost of the officer, for the vehicle, for the fuel, and for the and there's an administrative fee attached to it as well. So the city is 100% reimbursed for the services of the officer and its equipment, and then an added administrative fee is tacked on.
Do they?
And that's something that we do for not just Spectre, but it's typically a construction company that we do. Just as an example, and I had explained this to the city manager a couple of years ago, we were hired by Verizon. They had a labor dispute, resulted in a walkout or strike, and we were hired to do police protection at their facility here in Peekskill. So that's just an example of a non-construction company. This is pretty common.
Okay. Well, I mean, I just to follow up on that, what the insurance? What kind of insurance do they cover us? And I'm just trying to get the money part of it down. Do they cover us for if something were to happen? Number one. Number two, what happens if one of our officers is not on Peekskill property when all of this happens?
Our officers are instructed to stay on Peekskill property. I know that didn't happen in this particular instance, and I do believe it was an honest mistake. Actually, not a mistake. I think it was a conscious decision to turn a vehicle around, which, based on the lay of the land down there, we're right on the border. Mm-hmm. So they ended up turning around in the town of Cortland, and there was a confrontation. However, as far as who's responsible, the officers are on duty. If they were to get injured, they would be covered under Workman's Comp and 207C.
And we have to pay for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my point.
Like I said, this is something that we've been doing for a number of years. It's very common in the police profession, and just the same, if we were called to respond down there and they got injured, we'd be responsible as well. So here
that's a different situation if we're called to respond.
I don't know. I think we're down there to be proactive and to prevent. It's more of a crime prevention measure, and we're down there to create a safety zone.
You're down there doing the bidding of the people that hire you.
We're not doing that. That's completely wrong. We're not taking sides down there. That's not the case at all.
That's not the case. When we do these events like the beer fest, the road nights, and when we calculate the cost to the city for police and sanitation, isn't it kind of the same thing, except that's not an event that we say put 2 or 3, like Montesano. I see them out all the time because you have to go around the construction. So these are things that it's a special event, kind of like these events that we charge for, but it's not something that we would assign somebody extra for, but they've asked us to cover their event.
That's right? Fair, yes.
Is that a fair comparison?
Yeah.
And we're just saying, instead of a regular police officer, you have to pay the top overtime rate because he's technically he is on duty.
Correct.
We're just paying him the overtime rate.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
So I don't really see. I think it's proactive that it's better to have a police officer there than they could hire their own Wild West private security, right?
Nothing would prevent them from doing that, no. They've chosen to hire police. They think it's a more effective way to deal with any potential issues. It is a proactive approach.
And I know they're driving out on 202 to get back and forth to court in Yorktown and to the Taconic. They have a county police cars are all over them. There was at least 3.
County's been, yes, they're
At the Cortland Farm Market,
Yeah.
I think it is, just before Bill Bolt's
yes.
Jeep.
I think that's all great, but I think the issue here is that sitting on the council and with this had been such a high-profile issue, and people were really concerned about it, that your council had no idea that this was taking place until people brought it to our attention, which I think is really kind of wrong. I think you have our public looking at us to say that, great, our Peekskill police are down here and they're doing this and that, and it really looks like, and it may not be that way, but it actually looks like that, the city of Peekskill is now supporting this pipeline, and there are police officers now down there, and, these are the things that are happening. So, granted, I mean, you're the chief of police, we're not going to know everything that's going on, but this was huge. And for people to come to us and ask us questions and we're looking dumbfounded, I think really puts us in a bad light.
Well, I understand that, and I did get a call from Councilwoman Talbot on Saturday, and I spoke with her right away and made her aware of it. So,
I mean, I'm floored. I had no idea that our officers were being paid to work down
and I
here.
appreciate that, Chief, that you sent somebody down for the other part of it that was escalating in a way that I was concerned.
right.
And we can talk about that maybe in executive session, because that was very concerning to me. Look, it's one of those things. It's one of those things because this city has passed a resolution that we're an intervener in this particular case. We passed a resolution saying that we don't want this pipeline coming through our town. And yet, in this case, on Thursday and on Saturday, police officers from the city of Peekskill were on Cortland property intervening and protecting Spectre from our citizens who were in a rightful place. And the county police did not arrest them, even though they threatened arrest, because they realized they were in a lawful place. And so, Spectre, had to deal with the fact of it. Now, I didn't start a demonstration down there, but it was started, and people feel very strongly about this particular issue, and they feel that the city is in a hazardous position because of this, because of where the pipeline is running. It's an ill-conceived project that I believe is ill-conceived, and now we have our staff down there on Cortland property protecting Spectre from its own citizens. I can't justify that to myself. I can't justify that to anybody. So
We're not actively working on the Cortland property. We're down there to protect the city's interests in terms of, and that's our responsibility, as you know, that we have to police, and we're doing it impartially, I believe. What happened on Cortland property is an officer was confronted and blocked in.
No, but there was another one on Thursday
and the county went to that.
And it was one of our
You're right on the border, so
Well, but you're on the border, you're a block away, you're in Cortland property. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
I think that adds to what if something happened? Now what happens? You're operating outside your jurisdiction. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer.
Well, if any, and this question,
Frank, I'm counting on you.
And this question was brought up a couple of weeks ago by Councilwoman Claxton if we were to respond to Buchanan for a complaint. I did the research on that. The municipality that calls for help is responsible for reimbursing the city for any injuries. So that's just as if
Even
we called,
207C.
correct, just as if we called someone in here and they got hurt at ours, we would be responsible.
Right,
so there is an
but
agreement on
Spectre
that.
is not.
Well, no, what I'm saying is if we were called to Cortland by a police officer who was in Cortland who was having an issue on the Spectre site, and we went over to assist and an officer got hurt, it would
And
fall on.
Portland would be responsible for paying that 207C. Now, we have quite a number of people who are out, who are short-staffed, as you say,
Yes.
regularly. We have quite a number of people who are out because of injuries, quite a number.
Right.
And long-term out, and we now are basically sort of renting our officers in a position where we don't get compensated if they get injured. We have to pay for that injury.
Right, and these are generally low-risk type of situations, but there's a risk in anything, as you know. And then also, if we don't do it, that means somebody else is going to come in and do it. And frankly, I don't feel comfortable having the New York State Police doing our policing or the Westchester County Police doing our policing, and I don't know that you would feel comfortable with that either.
Cortland does.
So-
I mean, Cortland had the county cops up there.
That's because it's in the town of Cortland, but do you want the county cops coming into Peekskill and doing the detail? They're going to hire a police department to do it. If we refuse,
Yeah.
that means that they're going to
I
hire the county or the state.
understand.
And I don't know that that's an ideal situation.
Can I ask you, what is
based
our
on what
perception of the city's interest down there?
What is our perception?
Yeah,
Well, we're there
like-
for traffic control, crowd control, crime prevention, and to maintain a safety zone down there. So if they're cutting trees, we don't want, if there's people that are going to come down there and protest, or if people just happen to be driving by to walk by, we stop traffic, just the same as we do on Route 202 when they're doing the paving. We're not the ones that are physically doing the flagging, but construction companies have found that when police officers are present with police cars and lights flashing, they tend to have a safer overall experience for their flag people, and that's similarly what's going on here.
Spectre has big bucks. I think I would talk to them about this. They should insure us if any of our guys get hurt.
Well, it's kind of like the same thing. I mean, if somebody got hurt doing the crowd control at the road nights.
That's a community event.
Well, they're all private. No, they're private
This is
events.
not a community event.
Well, they're private events that people are asking for top quality security for. I don't have a problem with it, but I do share the same concerns as Councilwoman McKenzie. We should have been notified of it, and because the city did take such a strong position against it. Kathy, you've been at every event. I went to Rockland County. I testified against it. We've done everything except actually hire legal counsel and oppose this. And my law firm privately has offered free legal counsel to anyone who gets arrested. So nobody's more against it than everybody. Nobody in this room is in favor of it.
So you are
But
a lawyer.
if they're going to do something, they have to do it safely. And I think the intention is good, but we look like politicians. We look like we're talking out of both sides of our mouth. And but nobody is there, although it appears, but nobody is there. The strong arm of Peekskill Police is not there on behalf of Spectre.
Absolutely not.
And not infringing upon anybody's rights. And I don't think you even arrested anybody, did you?
No, we have not.
And just as a side token, I just want to let Dave, I talked to Dave about, did you report that all the litigation against Spectre was lost?
That's correct.
Could you just tell the council what you told me?
Well, the litigation against Spectre was lost some time ago.
What
And-
litigation?
Where the towns have, similar to Peekskill, where they have gone to court to try to stop it.
Correct. There were multiple municipalities that sought intervener status, which were defeated. There was a motion for a rehearing, which has not taken place. FERC has issued its certificate of convenience and necessity for Spectre to move forward, which is why they were down at the site where they're maintaining their easement area.
Okay. Thanks, Dave.
So, Chief, I just have two quick questions. The first is, when we receive overtime reports from the police department, does this type of overtime appear on those reports?
Yes, it will, but it also, you'll see in the reimbursement side. There's a reimbursement line that,
Beyond the reimbursement, though, you said that there's administrative fees, and it seemed almost as if you implied maybe that what they were paying was more than the cost of the city. Is there a revenue line on the budget?
yes, there is. There's an overtime reimbursement revenue line.
But for the administrative
Not for
fee.
I'm not sure I think it all goes into the same line,
Where does it go?
into the overtime reimbursement line, police overtime reimbursement.
They don't break out administrative fees. Is that what you're saying?
I don't believe you break that out, no.
But we don't waive it either.
No.
Okay. Anything else, Kat?
No, the rest would be an executive.
Do we have an executive?
Do you request an executive session to speak about a person? We don't have one otherwise. It's up to you all.
You're requesting executive session for what?